Hello, cherished listeners, and welcome to our cozy corner of storytelling. I'm so glad you've joined us today for another journey into the imagination. If you enjoy these tales, please consider hitting that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you're listening from. Now settle in, get comfortable, and prepare to be transported into the heart of the wild with our story, Paws of the Wild, A Cat's Fight for Freedom. Whiskers was a cat of quiet rebellion, his sleek obsidian fur a stark contrast to the plush velvet cushions he was expected to grace. For 5 long years, his life had been a gilded cage, a routine of gourmet kibble, sunbeams through a window, and the gentle, though often suffocating, caresses of his human, Miss Eleanor, while other house cats purred contentedly at the scratch of a chin. Whiskers felt an incessant, almost primal, tug towards the untamed world beyond the glass. His emerald eyes, usually placid, would often narrow with an unreadable intensity as he watched the sparrows dart among the oak branches or the distant, shadowed expanse of the ancient woods that bordered Miss Eleanor's manicured garden. He yearned for the scent of damp earth, the thrill of the chase, the raw, unfiltered essence of existence that seemed to hum just beyond his reach. His days were a monotonous cycle of naps and observation. He knew every creak of the floorboards, every chime of the grandfather clock, every nuance of Miss Eleanor's footsteps. He was well-fed, safe, and utterly, profoundly bored. The wild, however, was a symphony of unknown dangers and exhilarating freedoms. He imagined the rustle of leaves beneath his paws, the cool bite of the wind against his whiskers, the sweet, metallic taste of freshly caught prey. These daydreams were his only solace, a secret world he built behind his impassive feline mask. He'd spend hours perched on the highest bookshelf, gazing out, his mind painting vibrant tapestries of daring hunts and silent stalks of moonlit chases and triumphant returns to a secret den. His instincts, dulled by years of domestication, were not dead. They merely slumbered, waiting for the spark that would ignite them. That spark came on a blustery autumn afternoon. A delivery truck, rumbling down the quiet suburban street, left the garden gate ajar, an oversight in Miss Eleanor's meticulous routine. Whiskers, who had been dozing on the windowsill, felt a sudden jolt, a primal surge of adrenaline. The gate, usually an impenetrable barrier, now stood open, a silent invitation to the world he had only dreamed of. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the quiet hum of the house. This was it, the moment he had unconsciously yearned for, the chance to shed the golden shackles of his comfortable prison. He crept low, his muscles tensed, his gaze fixed on the sliver of freedom. He moved with a stealth he didn't know he possessed, a shadow among shadows, slipping through the gap before the gate could swing shut. The cool, crisp air of the outside world hit him like a revelation, 1,000 new scents assaulting his senses, each one a promise of adventure. He was out, truly, finally out. The garden, once his entire world, now felt small, a mere prelude to the vast, unknown wilderness that beckoned. The first taste of freedom was intoxicating, a dizzying rush of new sensations. Whiskers darted across Miss Eleanor's lawn, the soft, manicured grass quickly giving way to the wilder, untamed edges of the woods. Every scent was a story, every rustle a mystery. The air, thick with the aroma of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the elusive scent of unseen creatures was a stark contrast to the sanitized air of his former home. He paused at the edge of the tree, line his whiskers, twitching his ears, swiveling, absorbing. The cacophony of the forest, the distant caw of a crow, the chirp of an unseen insect, the gentle whisper of wind through the branches. It was overwhelming, exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. He pushed deeper into the woods, his initial exhilaration slowly giving way to a growing unease. The familiar sounds of the neighborhood faded, replaced by the profound silence of the wilderness, broken only by nature's symphony. The trees, once a distant, beautiful blur, now loomed overhead, their branches forming a tangled, shadowy canopy that devoured the sunlight. The ground was uneven, a treacherous mosaic of gnarled roots, moss-covered stones, and sharp twigs that pricked at his delicate paw pads. His sleek, well-fed body, accustomed to soft carpets and warm laps, felt suddenly vulnerable, exposed. He realized with a jolt that he was utterly alone. There was no warm bowl of kibble awaiting him, no soft bed, no human hand to offer comfort. Hunger, a sensation he had rarely known, began to gnaw at his stomach. He tried to stalk a plump robin, mimicking the hunting shows he'd watched on television, but his movements were clumsy, his timing off. The bird, with a mocking chirp, flitted away, leaving him frustrated and empty-pawed. He attempted to pounce on a scurrying mouse, but its lightning speed and his own lack of experience led to another humiliating failure. The reality of survival was far harsher than his daydreams. His pampered claws, trimmed and filed, were inadequate tools for climbing or digging. His soft pads, unhardened by rough terrain, ached with every step. The thought of returning to Miss Eleanor's warm, predictable home flickered in his mind, a fleeting temptation, but the memory of the open date, the taste of true freedom, solidified his resolve. As dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, the forest transformed. Shadows lengthened, distorting familiar shapes into menacing figures. The chirping of birds gave way to the hoot of an owl, a sound that sent shivers down his spine. The cold, a biting chill he had never experienced, began to seep into his fur, making him shiver uncontrollably. He huddled beneath a large, ancient oak tree, its rough bark offering little solace. The sounds of the night, once distant and romanticized, now seemed amplified. Each rustle, each snap of a twig, a potential threat. He was no longer a pampered pet. He was a small, vulnerable creature in a vast and different world. His fight for freedom had just begun, and the first lesson was a brutal one. Freedom was not free. It demanded a price, a struggle for every breath, every meal, every moment of survival. The first night was a long, terrifying ordeal. Whiskers huddled, shivering, under the roots of the ancient oak, every sense on high alert. The darkness was absolute, broken only by the faint glow of distant stars peeking through the canopy. Sounds he couldn't identify echoed through the woods. The rustle of unseen creatures, the snapping of twigs, the distant howl of what he suspected was a coyote. Sleep was impossible, replaced by a vigilant, trembling awareness. He had never felt so small, so utterly alone. When the first slivers of dawn pierced the darkness, painting the forest in soft, hopeful hues, a wave of exhaustion washed over him, but also a fierce determination to survive. Over the next few days, Whiskers' instincts, long dormant, began to stir. Hunger became a relentless teacher. He learned to differentiate between the scurry of a mouse and the heavy tread of a badger. His paws, once soft, started to toughen, calluses forming against the rough terrain. He discovered the subtle art of stalking, moving with a fluid grace he hadn't known he possessed. His first successful hunt was a small, plump foal, a messy, primal victory that filled him with a surge of raw, unfamiliar power. The taste of fresh, warm blood was startling, yet deeply satisfying. This wasn't kibble. This was life, earned through his own cunning and speed. He began to explore his immediate surroundings, establishing a rough territory. He found a small, hidden alcove beneath a tangle of roots, a drier, more secluded spot than his first night's refuge. He marked it with his scent, a declaration of his newfound independence. He encountered other creatures of the wild, a wary squirrel chattering angrily from a high branch, a family of deer grazing peacefully in a sun-dappled clearing, their large, gentle eyes observing him with detached curiosity. He learned quickly which animals to avoid, the aggressive snarl of a fox, the silent, watchful gaze of a hawk circling high above. He was no longer just Whiskers, Miss Eleanor's pet. He was becoming a creature of the forest, learning its unspoken rules, its rhythms, its whispers. One afternoon, while tracking a rabbit, he stumbled upon a clearing where an old, scarred tomcat, much larger and leaner than himself, was basking in a patch of sunlight. The tom, whose fur was a patchwork of muted grays and browns, lifted his head, his one good eye fixing Whiskers with an unblinking stare. Whiskers instinctively tensed, ready to flee. But the tom merely gave a slow, deliberate blink, a gesture of non-aggression. He seemed to sense Whiskers' unfamiliarity, his cautiousness. And in his silent presence, Whiskers felt a strange, unspoken mentorship, a guide in the daunting landscape of his new home. The whispers of the wild were becoming clearer, less frightening, more like a language he was slowly, painstakingly learning to understand. The badger, a creature of immense power and stubbornness, faced Whiskers with an unnerving stillness. Its low growl deepened, a rumble that vibrated through the forest floor. Whiskers, despite his trembling, held his ground. He knew instinctively that showing fear, even for a moment, would invite attack. He channeled every ounce of his newfound wildness, every lesson learned from Grizzly, every instinct that had awoken within him. His emerald eyes, once filled with longing, now blazed with a fierce, protective fire. He hissed again, a warning, a challenge. The badger, perhaps sensing the unexpected resolve in the smaller creature, took a cautious step back, then another. It was a subtle shift, but enough. Whiskers had stood his ground, and the badger, instead of pressing the attack, snorted, turned, and ambled away into the deeper shadows of the woods, its powerful frame disappearing silently. Whiskers remained rigid until the last sound of its retreat faded, then collapsed, panting, his muscles aching with the adrenaline. He had faced a true predator, and he had not fled. He had won. This encounter marked a turning point. Whiskers' confidence soared. He no longer merely survived, he thrived. His hunting skills became exceptional, his senses incredibly acute. He could pinpoint the precise location of a scurrying mouse beneath a layer of leaves, track a rabbit by the faintest scent, and move through the underbrush with the silence of a ghost. His territory, once a vague concept, became a defined reality, meticulously patrolled and defended. He knew every tree, every rock, every hidden path within his domain. He was the undisputed master of his patch of forest, a lean, efficient predator, utterly attuned to his surroundings. He continued to cross paths with Grizzly, the old tomcat. Sometimes they would hunt in parallel, a silent understanding passing between them. Grizzly, with his one good eye and battle-scarred body, seemed to acknowledge Whiskers as an equal, a fellow survivor forged in the crucible of the wild. They never truly joined forces, for wildcats are solitary by nature, but there was a quiet respect, a mutual recognition of their shared existence. Whiskers learned more from these silent encounters than any lesson Miss Eleanor could have taught him. He learned about patience, about the importance of knowing when to fight and when to retreat, and about the deep, abiding solitude of the truly free. He also encountered other creatures who, like him, had chosen the wild path. A small, skittish ferret escaped from a nearby farm, and a cunning weasel who shared his hunting grounds. While never forming a pack in the traditional sense, there was a shared understanding, a network of awareness. They existed in a delicate balance, respecting each other's territories, occasionally sharing information through scent marks or warning calls. Whiskers, once a creature of comfort and predictability, had found his true calling. He was a wildcat, his paws rooted in the earth, his spirit soaring with the wind. The forest was his new pack, its ancient trees his kin, and the untamed wilderness his eternal home. He had not just found a territory. He had found his identity, cemented in the very fabric of the wild. Seasons cycled through the forest, each bringing new challenges and new lessons. Whiskers endured the biting cold of winter, learning to find shelter in snow-laden hollows and to hunt even when prey was scarce. He traveled in the bursting life of spring, the abundance of summer, and the rich bounty of autumn. His body bore the subtle marks of his journey, a small tear in one ear from a skirmish with a rival cat, a faint scar on his flank from a close call with a falling branch. These were not injuries. They were badges of honor, testament to a life truly lived, a freedom hard won and fiercely defended. He was no longer the sleek, pampered Whiskers of Miss Eleanor's house. He was Shadow, a name whispered by the wind and known by the creatures of the forest, a silent, powerful presence in the ancient woods. Sometimes, on the periphery of his territory, he would catch the distant scent of human habitation, a faint whiff of cooked food or the lingering aroma of Miss Eleanor's familiar perfume. These echoes of the past would stir a fleeting pang of memory, a ghost of a comfortable warmth. He would remember the soft beds, the endless supply of food, the gentle, albeit confining, touch of human hands. But these memories no longer held power over him. They were like distant stars, beautiful to observe, but no longer his guiding light. His true north was the rustle of leaves, the scent of fresh rain, the raw, exhilarating call of the wild. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues, Shadow found himself on the highest ridge overlooking the vast expanse of the forest. Below him, the trees stretched like an endless green ocean, alive with the sounds of the approaching night. He felt a profound sense of peace, a deep, resonant calm that settled in his bones. He was free, not just from a physical cage, but from the cage of expectation of a life not chosen. He was beholden to no one, master of his own destiny, a true child of the wilderness. He saw Grizzly, the old Tom, appear on a distant rock, a dark silhouette against the fading light. They exchanged a silent, knowing glance, a shared acknowledgement of their wild, solitary existence. Grizzly gave a slow, deliberate blink, a silent farewell, perhaps, before melting back into the shadows. Shadow knew then that his journey was complete. He had found his place not in a house, but in the heart of the untamed world. He let out a soft, almost imperceptible purr, a sound of deep contentment. His fight for freedom had transformed him from a pampered pet into a powerful, independent spirit. He was Shadow, the wildcat, and the forest, with its endless challenges and boundless freedoms, was his forever home. The echoes of his past were gentle reminders, but the roar of his future was the call of the wild, and he answered it with every beat of his fierce, free heart. His story was no longer about escape, but about belonging, a testament to the untamed spirit that sleeps within us all, waiting for its moment to awaken.